Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to try and teach you maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about second language education, and we're going to kind of take up on that again. Some schools use an English immersion approach in which minority children are immersed in English from the beginning in special classes. And of course, that's, the ESL, English is your second language classes. And they have these during school in areas that are, heavy with children who don't speak English. Other schools have adopted programs of bilingual education in which children are taught in two languages, first learning in their native language with others who also speak it, and then switching to regular classes in English when they become more proficient in it. In the school, my son's schools, when they were coming up, they had some of these classes for people who spoke Spanish, because we're getting to have kind of a heavy Hispanic population here in our city. So, they have made that. We're having more and more immigrants come in, so maybe later on there'll be more of these classes. These programs can encourage children to become bilingual and to feel pride in their cultural identity. And we all should feel pride in our cultural identity. If anybody tells you your culture is bad or wrong, or, of course it's going to be different. But, there are some people in this country who like to make other cultural groups feel bad for being different from them. And that's called prejudice. It's one of those ists I don't like. So, you should feel pride in your cultural identity. Advocates of early English immersion claim that the sooner children are exposed to English and the more time they spend speaking it, the better they learn it. Support for this view comes from findings that the effectiveness of second language learning declines from early childhood through late adolescence. And I can tell you that. I've been studying Spanish for years. I seriously doubt if I could have an actual conversation with a natural Spanish speaker. Mine is very slow and choppy, and I can actually read it better than I can understand it when people are saying it. So, if I had learned it better as a kid, I would probably be able to speak it. But as you get older, that old saying about the old dogs and the new tricks. A study of 70,000 non-English speaking students in high-quality second language programs in 5 districts across the United States offers strong support for a bilingual approach. So they've actually studied this and found that, it does work. If you're teaching a child in what they're naturally speaking at home, and then switch over to English as they get more proficient at it, it works. The study compared not only English proficiency, but also long-term academic achievement. In the primary grades, whether the children were in bilingual or English immersion programs made little difference. But from 7th grade on, children who had remained in bilingual programs, at least through 6th grade, caught up with or even surpassed their native English-speaking peers. So these kids actually did as well or better than the other kids their age in school. And of course, a reason to study language is to keep your brain working, functioning, and because I have a problem, in the speech center of my brain from the stroke I had years ago, it helps me to learn, and, can actually help a little bit to keep the wheels turning. Because sometimes the brain, it knows what I want to say, but it can't get the right stuff out. So sometimes we have to look for similar things, because the right words are in there somewhere, but we can't get them out. Most successful was a third, less common approach, two-way or dual language learning, in which English-speaking and foreign-speaking children learn together in their own and each other's languages. So the kids learn together each other's languages. This approach avoids any need to place non-English speaking children in separate classes, which keeps them, at a equal level. I felt like something kind of nibbled on my hair. I got itchy. I ain't got a latent mosquito in the house. By valuing both languages equally, it helps build self-esteem and thus improve school performance. Because, children want to fit in. And if they can't speak the language that their peers are speaking, that does affect their, self-esteem a little bit. So, by catching up there and being in there with the other kids and learning more, that can help their self-confidence. An added advantage is that English speakers learn a foreign language at an early age, when they can acquire it most easily. So like I said, if they had that going on in most classrooms, that would be great. And like sometimes you see these little signs here, places where you have like the English word, Spanish word, Farsi word, African word. That would be great if we could do that. It would take too long, honestly, to teach your kids all of that at once. But it would be great because the kids would learn and, then they could be, multi-language speakers and go out into the world and talk to anybody. And that would be, easier on them. These findings echo earlier ones. The more bilingually proficient children are, the higher their cognitive and linguistic achievement. As long as school personnel value bilingualism, and the second language is added at no sacrifice to the first. So again, you should have pride in your cultural identity. It shouldn't be, something that, excuse me here while I itch this little bump here, because I think something bit me. But you should have pride in your culture and your language, your native language. And anyone who tells you different, yeah, they got that ist, on the back of their name. I hate those ists. When bilingualism rises to the level of biliteracy, proficiency in reading and writing two languages, which makes possible full participation in both cultures, we see the most positive effects. So, like I said, I actually do better at reading it than I do hearing it. Because that's their native language and they're talking fast and I'm talking like I'm learning it, something blah, blah, blah. So, it's so much easier when you're young. When bilingualism raises to the level of biliteracy, okay, we touched on that one. Despite such findings, critics claim that bilingual education has produced children who do not know enough English to hold a job. And that is a problem when we have immigrants come to America, which America is a land of immigrants. Read your plaque on your Statue of Liberty if you forgot that. And, think about where your ancestors came from, because unless you're a Native American, full-blooded, they did not come from here. A lot of European Americans forget that if you're descended from English, Scottish, Irish, German, French, Italian, whatever people, your ancestors came from somewhere else. You are the product of immigrants. Hello, might be a surprise to you, but you are. Just as educators have become more sensitive to teaching children from various cultural backgrounds, they also have sought to meet the needs of children with special education needs. And that is something that I have dealt with myself, and I know people who have dealt with this. I keep scooting here. Don't worry about me. I'm just moving this thing over here a little bit because my book keeps shoving it over. So, spatial problems on the table here. Mental retardation is significantly subnormal cognitive functioning. It is indicated by an IQ of about 70 or less, coupled with a deficiency in age-appropriate adaptive behavior, such as communication, social skills, and self-care, appearing before age 18. So, not everyone with a learning disability is retarded, and in fact, they don't even use that word anymore when you are talking about mentally or learning disabled children. So, let's get that straight. Not everyone who has a mental disability or a birth defect is retarded. People who have mental disabilities can actually have very high IQs. Mine's 135 at last testing. Not bragging, just stating that's a fact. I have a son who's mentally disabled who has an IQ of 122 that I saw. It might be higher now. He might have had other testing, but that's the last one I saw. So, to label people as retarded is not cool, folks. Just not. Both IQ and behavior are considered in making a diagnosis. About 1% of the U.S. population are mentally retarded. About 3 males for every 2 females. So about 1%. 1%. That's pretty small. In about 30 to 40% of cases, the cause of mental retardation is unknown. Known causes, in declining order, include problems in embryonic development, such as in fetal alcohol syndrome, mental disorders, such as autism, environmental influences, such as lack of nurturance, problems in pregnancy and childbirth, such as fetal malnutrition or birth trauma, hereditary conditions, such as Tay-Sachs disease, and medical problems in childhood. Excuse me. Such as trauma or lead poisoning. Most cases of retardation may be preventable through genetic counseling, prenatal care, and amniocentesis, routine screening and health care for newborns, and nutritional services for pregnant women and infants. So here we go back to a lot of those social programs that people say are unnecessary, when what we're trying to do here is help mothers and children so that these kinds of birth defects that can cause mental disabilities and things don't happen. Most retarded children can benefit from schooling. Intervention programs have helped many mildly or moderately retarded adults and those considered borderline, with IQs ranging from 70 up to about 85, to hold jobs, live in the community, and function fairly well in society. And that's an important thing if you want your child to succeed and have a life. Okay, I'm back. That was the phone, as you could probably hear. Okay. Let's see. Okay. We went there. All right. The profoundly retarded need constant care and supervision, usually in institutions. And don't let anyone tell you when your child is young that you need to institutionalize them. I was told my middle child, who is on the spectrum, he has Asperger's, would have to be institutionalized when he got older. He outgrew most all of his problems. He is the most social, well-adjusted person you could ever wish to meet. He's got some quirks, but he definitely would not have been a good fit in an institution. I'm so glad that we did not listen to that and raised him just like he was anybody else. Like I said, he came through all that, and he's a better than average person. So don't let anyone tell you stick your kid away up front. For some, daycare centers, hostels for retarded adults, and homemaking services for caregivers can be less costly and more humane alternatives. Because if you need help, there's no shame in getting help. Ask for help if you need help. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed, because sometimes it does take a village, and there are extra help places. The clinic I used to go to had extra help, and there are different programs that you can talk to your doctor about or whatever. Don't suffer in silence. If you need help, it's out there. Anne Bancroft was far from the only eminent person who has struggled with learning problems. Nelson Rockefeller, former Vice President of the United States, had so much trouble reading that he ad-libbed speeches instead of using a script. Others who reportedly have suffered from dyslexia, a developmental reading disorder in which reading achievement is substantially below the level predicted by IQ or age, includes the World War II hero General George Patton, who I'm related to, the inventor Thomas Edison, and the actress Whoopi Goldberg. So, dyslexia is not uncommon. Dyslexia is the most commonly diagnosed of a large number of learning disabilities, LDs, disorders that interfere with specific aspects of school achievement, resulting in performance substantially lower than would be expected given a child's age, intelligence, and amount of schooling. A growing number of children are classified as learning disabled, 2.8 million in 2001. So, if your child's teacher says your child might have a learning disability and wants to test them, let them do it. Because there's no reason to not help your child as much as you possibly can, because nowadays they have these tools and technologies that can help this kid keep up with his peers, maybe even surpass his peers in some cases. So don't be afraid of that. 2.8 million in 2001. Learning disabilities. Children with learning disabilities often have near average to higher than average intelligence and normal vision and hearing, but they have trouble processing sensory information. So it's a processing problem in the brain. It's not that they can't see well. Sometimes that's the case. They can't hear well. Sometimes it's a processing problem in the brain. They tend to be less task-oriented and more easily distracted than other children. They are less well-organized as learners and less likely to use memory strategies. That's something I use quite a bit, because as I get older, the memory is just not what it used to be. So, if you're trying to remember the number 888 roller skate, 777, we went to heaven, those are memory aids. But people with learning disabilities don't think of those things, and they're less likely to use strategies to help them. So they need a little help. Learning disabilities can have devastating effects on self-esteem as well as on the report card. And I'm going to tell a story of a kid I know, and he had a teacher who sat him in the back of the room at a table with other kids that she described as LD, and grouped them all as behavioral problems. In her mind, if you were LD, you're a behavioral issue. And so she started cutting these kids out of things. And I just got so very angry at this. And there were several instances where Ms. Coleman went up to the school, and we had some talks about some things. And then those things didn't happen anymore because Miss Coleman, knows her rights, and she ain't afraid to go to the federal board of exceptional childhood education. you know, you ain't gonna derail my kid's life. Just putting that out there. So it does affect a child's self-esteem. When you not only have kids calling someone a retard, but you have adults calling them this and allowing children to call them this. This can take a serious hit on the self-esteem. And if you are learning disabled, don't let those people bother you. They're ignorant, Otherwise, they wouldn't be acting like that, Ignorant people are scared of anything different. Woo! Excuse me. And again, some teachers aren't knowledgeable about learning disabilities, so they might grade the child more harshly than they need to rather than intervening in the education. 4 to 5 children with LDs have dyslexia. Estimates of its prevalence range from 5 to 17.5% of the school's population. It seems to affect boys and girls equally. Earlier we just talked about the retardation affecting boys more, but dyslexia also, affects both sexes. And I've actually heard other people say, well, that's only affects boys. No, that's not true. Don't know who told you that, but it's not true. So, your boy or your girl might have this problem. And if they're struggling, you might want to get them tested, and so they can intervene in that quick before the child falls behind. The term dyslexia refers to any type of reading problem. Most cases are believed to result from a neurological defect in processing speech sounds. An inability to recognize the words consist of smaller units of sound, which are represented by printed letters. So the brain has a problem unscrambling. Now, one of my children not only had dyslexia, they had dysgraphia. They weren't only, having problems processing, they couldn't produce these things. Not only were they turning things backwards, they were turning things upside down. And so that was a pretty big deal. It involved, a teacher for phonics and an intervention with the ECE teachers. And now, he's got a good job doing pretty good for himself. So, let them interventions happen. It's only helpful. It's only helpful. This defect in phonological processing makes it hard to decode words. This and other languages and communication disorders show substantial genetic influence. So yes, unfortunately, it's inherited. Dyslexic children also may be weak in short-term verbal memory and other linguistic and cognitive skills. So, don't let anyone tell you that your kid is dumb. Your kid might just have learning disability, and they're a little bit slow in processing. But once they can process and, learn ways to help them process, they can excel. So, like I said, if them teachers want to get the child tested, let them do it. Let them do it. There's no reason not to. Brain imaging has revealed differences in the regions of the brain activating during phonological tasks in dyslexia as compared with normal readers. Although dyslexic children can be taught to read through systematic phonological training, the process never becomes automatic, as it does with most readers. So they've, imaged the brains and showed that there is a difference in the brain. So like I say, if a teacher's telling you there's a problem, just go with it, let them test. Don't be ashamed. Don't put a stigma on your child. Don't let other people do that to your child, because the child needs the help in order to excel. And I know kids who went through ECE and have excelled and gone on to college and excelled. So, these kids need a leg up. They need some help. Let them have it. Give it to them. It's only going to, make their life better. Mathematical disabilities include difficulty in counting, comparing numbers, calculating, and remembering basic arithmetic facts. And I had a lot of problems with math when I was younger. Then as I got older, it finally clicked for me, and I could figure it out, and to the point where I did this super long math problem, and nobody else got it right, and I did, and ended up with a little $10 scholarship or $10 bond that, my mother never even let me cash or put in anywhere. So, each of these may involve distinct disabilities. One cause may be a neurological deficit. And everyone's brain is different. Nobody's brain is perfect. And we have differences in our brain. And so if a certain part of your brain has a deficit there, and there's not a lot going on there, then there could be a problem. But like I said, the more I worked at it, the better I got. So evidently the natural deficit was helped by making the connections of new neurons until it worked itself out. So, as the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Of course, not all children who have trouble with reading or arithmetic are learning disabled. Of course not. We're all different. Some of us do better in some areas and poorer in some areas. So, you can't label a kid, just because they're having a problem in one area. It should be an overall thing before they start saying, yeah, we need to check this out. If they got an A in spelling and a C in math, that's just they're having problems with the math. So, don't let your kid get labeled and pigeonholed. But, if it's an overall problem, child's coming home with D report cards all the time, that's something that, y'all might want to look into. Some haven't been taught properly, are anxious or have trouble reading or hearing directions, lack motivation to learn math, or have a developmental delay which eventually disappears, like mine. So, again, not everyone's the same. We're all different. So, allow for that. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, affects an estimated 2 to 11% or more of school-aged children worldwide, and 3 to 6% in the United States, though some research suggests that its prevalence there may be underestimated. So there's probably more people with it than has actually been reported. One of my sons has it. My husband has it. His mother has it. So, I have an uncle and I had a cousin who has it. So it's not uncommon. But it can cause problems in school. It is marked by persistent inattention, distractibility, impulsivity, low tolerance for frustration, and a great deal of activity at the wrong time and the wrong place, such as in the classroom. So those little hyper impulsive kids that, easily off, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because if you're not paying attention, what you're supposed to be learning, you're not going to learn it. Boys are 3 to 4 times as likely to be diagnosed as girls. And in that case, that one's true. Boys are more likely to have ADHD than girls. They're not quite sure about all the reasons why. They've done some research, but yeah, sorry guys. The disorder has 2 different sets of symptoms. Some children are inattentive, but not hyperactive. And that's, the problem that my son had. He was very distractible. Others show the reverse pattern. However, in 85% of the cases, the 2 behaviors go together. These characteristics appear to some degree in most children. There is cause for concern when they are unusually frequent and so severe as to interfere with the child's functioning in school and in daily life. And we knew something was up. We just didn't know what. Then when we went to school, and he was just very impulsive and distractible, and we were like, oh, and the teacher said, hey, you know what? I think we need to get this checked out. And we were like, yeah, okay. I went and observed him in the classroom because he wasn't doing the things at home that we were told he was doing in the classroom. So I went and observed the classroom, and he had a really good teacher, and she was telling me, and I was like, yeah, you're right. This is a problem. So we got him tested. We got him help, and he graduated. He went to college, and he's got a pretty good job now. So there you go. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope this helped you to figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.